everybody, this is John and Jackie of OpenLove101.com. And today we're going to have a little discussion about how we're all raised differently. And we're all raised with different views. We're taught different views about sex. And that can have a bearing on how we accept and move forward in more of an open relationship or swinger lifestyle. For Jackie, we've talked about many times and have written about, she was raised in a pretty strict household, especially when it came to sex. No sex before marriage, right?
Right.
And a lot of women and men are raised in that way, especially here in the States. Whereas me, on the other hand, I was raised without any restrictions on. I don't know. I can't remember if I was even. It just seemed like it was a good thing. It seemed like I was encouraged to go out as a young man and
sow your oats.
Yeah, lose my virginity is where I was going with that, I guess. And the only restriction that I had, the only thing I would be made to feel bad about, or what I was taught was wrong, would be sex between men, homosexuality. And I don't really know where that came from, but I know that early on I was taught that wasn't right. Now, I have a completely different view about that today as an adult. But as far as sex in general goes, I didn't have any of those restrictions imposed upon me like you did. So here I am as a young man, still in high school, and I would meet girls and we would fool around, and I didn't have any guilt or shameful feelings about that. And I think that people that are raised differently end up having some shame and guilt. And that can make it difficult, and that can be a challenge, I think, in moving forward in more of an open relationship or in the swingers lifestyle. It's the fear and that change of thought that you're going to have to overcome, and that you have, Jackie.
For sure. I mean, there is no doubt, and that's what can be, a real challenge for some of us, that we want to be in the lifestyle, or maybe not even in the lifestyle. We want to be more sexually accepting of ourselves, but it's hard to find that starting point when we've been taught something completely different. And I've said this before too, that's not something that just goes away by saying at one time to ourselves, oh, I'm going to be more sexually adventurous. It is a process where you are, retagging that file that you have in your head that says, yes, it's okay if you want to experiment. Yes, it's okay if you want to have sex. Yes, it's okay if you want to have sex with your partner and someone else. I mean, those are some really, those can be some really interesting topics if you've been taught your whole life growing up that those are the kind of conversations you're not supposed to have. And, the horrible things are going to happen to you if you do that. And if you can step outside that box long enough to maybe give it a try and see for yourself if there's any validity to what you've been taught. And, maybe you'll come out the other side saying, man, that's not for me. Or you may come out the other side saying, wow, that is really enlightening. It's really an enhancement to my relationship. It makes me feel more confident. I feel better about myself, more in touch with myself, more in touch with my partner, more in touch with all the other people that I'm coming in contact with. I mean, it can really be eye-opening, and it would be eye-opening either way. But I think it's important a lot of times as adults that we don't just blindly follow maybe sometimes what we have been taught. Because like I said in previous videos, it has a lot to do with our perception of what is going on. Mm-hmm. And just that slight tweak can change the view in which what is taking place.
And something else that takes place when one partner was raised the way Jackie was, and someone like me that's raised to be more open-minded. As I had mentioned before, my first threesome was 18 years old, and I didn't think anything negative about it at all. I mean, there wasn't any negative. And I've met people over the years that have felt uncomfortable with it because of the shame involved with, how can I do that? That's so wrong. And it really is just a perception in the way you're raised. So when the two couples have different perceptions of it, it really takes understanding from both couples. Jackie has to understand that I was raised a different way and I have a more open mind, and I have to understand that she wasn't. And if she wants to change that perception of things, it takes patience, and because it really can be a difficult thing. I've seen it to make that change in your mind, to go from it's bad to it's okay and it makes me feel good and I love it. That progress definitely can take some time to do that.
Well, and again, the other great thing about, at least for me, being in this lifestyle was this whole concept of kind of like the teacher-pupil aspect of what was going on in our relationship. I had the opportunity to learn from John because of how he was raised and his differences and his peace and acceptance about his sexuality, where, I was raised completely different. Yeah, it was okay as far as sex goes. Obviously that's going to take place when you're married and all of that. But there was still this sense of shame or guilt if you did anything outside of the lines. And so it was great to see someone that had such a positive view of sexuality that I could learn from. And then, I also became a teacher in the sense that, like John said, it taught him patience and the fact that, wow, some people come at their sexuality from a completely different vantage point.
Right. And then finally, there may be situations where there's a couple and they're okay with being with people of the opposite sex, but the woman may feel like it's wrong to be with another woman. Now, there are plenty of swing couples out there that are okay with the bisexuality with women, but the men aren't. And I think that comes from the way we're raised as well. So you were raised to think that was wrong. I was raised to think that sex with another man is wrong. And so that has been a hindrance. Like if I were to think about doing it, there would be something there like, ooh, something right, holding me back because of that, how I was taught as a child. I hope today that I am more open-minded to trying things like that, because I really, today, I do not believe there's anything wrong with it. And I think Jackie has kind of made progress in that area too. So if you're feeling uncomfortable about certain situations, there's a good chance that uncomfortable feeling comes from something that was a seed that was planted in your mind at a young age.
That's good.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So, sex is fun. That's all there is to it, right? If you haven't signed up for our email list, please do so at openlove101.com, and we will be sending you an email about our upcoming videos and blogs and trips and all kinds of fun things. So, in the meantime, have a great time, and we'll see you.